Hello and welcome. My name's Vicky Washay, and this is a Wealthy Life podcast. I don't normally jump in and do a podcast in front of guest podcasts, other than if it's normally in the sequence. Normally, I just do a podcast intro. But these two coming podcasts, one from Cyril about commercial properties and one from Lisa Oliver about whether you should self-manage houses of multiple occupancy, I think could serve as a higher level lesson if I preface it for you, if instead of letting you guess and work it out for you, if I point out what to watch for now that I've recorded them and I know what they're saying and I know the value in what they're saying. So let me explain, and then hopefully these next two episodes will make a massive difference to you, whether you are interested in commercial or whether you are interested in HMOs, or quite frankly, even whether you're interested in property. So let's get into it. Hi, so I wanted to do more than just an intro to the next two podcasts. So as I've mentioned already, they are going to be Cyril Thomas talking about commercial properties and Lisa Oliver talking about HMOs. And what I want to do is take it up a level to unpick the planning and, I suppose, really in this case, the business development that has gone on. So let's just break that down and have a little look at that. So first off, we have the basics, if you like, of any business that you can find in these episodes. So you have got the importance of education. In Cyril's case, so important that he's even set up something called PEAS, which is the Property Educators Accreditation Service. And this is, scheme, not service, scheme. And PEAS is about making sure that if you want education around property investment, you're getting the best quality. And what they've done is they've taken people through an accreditation process and then taken them through a probation process. And then if you want to find people who could help you on your journey, you can go to the website and find people that are trusted rather than just people who are friends, that type of stuff. So there's education on Cyril's side. And if you listen to other podcasts from him, you'll see his creative thinking and his entrepreneurial spirit that is quite innate in him. If you look at Lisa's side, Lisa has taken a strategy, much like Cyril, in HMOs that is very complex with the legals. I mean, the legal requirements in commercial properties from building regulations and everything else is extraordinary. The legal requirements in houses of multiple occupancy, where you're going to have strangers basically living in the same building and making sure that they're safe and that they're comfortable and that it's well run and well maintained, is crucial as well. So there's a lot of education. I think she says that there are 127 pieces of legislation just relating to houses of multiple occupations. There's a lot to know, but it's also about how you can apply that knowledge. And if you look at Lisa's journey, what she's done is she's come from doing a strategy for herself. So she's investing in property. She's seen the benefits of investing in property, much like I have and pretty much all my guests have. And then what she's done is she's then gone, I'm going to refine my own systems to make them as good as they can be. And then by doing that, people on the circle around her have gone, oh, Lisa seems to be doing all right. I'll ask her whether she can help me and how she's doing it. And then that has turned into a business. And that's so parallel to what I did. So I started investing in property for myself. People started to notice what I was doing and started saying to me, can you do for me what you're doing for yourself? How can I invest in property? Can you help me? And that created the training business and the sourcing company. With Cyril, what he's done is he's investing in property. He's quite fine. He's got an office because there's a lot of management for the portfolio that he's got. And then he's thought to himself, why am I paying rent? There's this vacant property just a couple of minutes away. Why don't I take that property over and I can use that for myself? Because what I've worked out is that half of this building actually mirrors my strategy. So he put a 5-bed HMO, because he was doing HMOs at the time as well, on the top floor. And then the money from that will mean that I can have the whole of the ground floor for myself rent free. So instead of paying the money out, I'm paying myself, or my tenants are paying for me to run the office downstairs. And that brings us to the maths. So that's really, really important. Both of them have flagged how important communications are. There is a story from Cyril about how he actually got the first deal that he did, the pub. And Lisa is making the important point about both communicating with your client, the tenant, but also communicating with your team and making sure that you're all pulling in the right directions. And that brings in team. Both have teams, obviously. So what you can see from these specific examples, and I think I flagged that up when I've done the intros and throughout the conversations, is education and being clear on your understanding of whatever it is you're doing, property or not, is crucial. So education. Within education comes understanding the financials of any deal. So whatever business you're in, or even not in business, even in your home life, understanding the financials of your home life, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, how to mitigate your expenses so that you can maximize the cash flow that you have in your house, your business, your property portfolio is crucial. And then there's all this bit around communication. So how you speak to people, literally verbally speak to people, but communications again in terms of paperwork, in terms of your social media, in terms of your marketing, and also internally, rather than that's all outward looking, internally, how you communicate with the team to make sure that everybody, I suppose, what works on your brand level. You know, it's very easy to get people to come in. Oh, so hello, can you come in and clean this room? And then when they've cleaned the room, you need to go around and clean the room again because they're not cleaning to your standards. When they're cleaning your HMOs or they're cleaning your commercial buildings or whatever they're doing, a cleaner needs to clean to your brand standard. If you're doing my marketing, you need to market to my brand standard so that you've got all of the right values in there. So making sure that all of that communication works. And of course, lying around all of this is the mentor. Who is the person pulling you forward when you get a challenge? Who is the person you go to? You'll hear Cyril talk a lot about the power of his network. And when he had a challenge, or even when he was sort of struggling to find a solution to something, he has people that he can go and speak to. So that's the very easy bit that you can get out of listening to these 2 episodes. But what I wanted to do is look at it from a business development perspective. So let's just take Lisa's, because I think it's an easier linear line to take. So Lisa has created for her family, because she's recognized, if you listen to previous podcasts, that investing in property is what they want to do. Fine. She's become good at it, because why would you do something and not be good at it? That's fine. She's making cash flow. She's minimizing expenses. She's sorting out her systems. So it's becoming easy for her to do it. Do you know what? When something becomes easy for you to do, people notice. People notice, well, how is it so easy for you? Because I'm struggling. And that's when they start to come to you. And what Lisa's now been able to do is create out of this a business opportunity. So she's still doing what she does every day, managing HMOs. And instead of just managing her own portfolio, now she's helping out other landlords. And you'll hear stories in her podcast about some of the challenges that some of the landlords that she meets have got themselves into, and how with her knowledge, her systems, her skills, her contacts, she's able to make that easier. But the key thing here is she's staying in the same field. She's still doing exactly the same job. She's still using the same team. She's still using the same contacts. But now she's being paid to do the same thing. And what that means is when this money starts to come in, you then have the financial resources to bring on new team members, which means you can actually almost step out of the business. So where you're thinking, right, well, I'm managing 5 or I'm managing 10 or whatever the number is for your own portfolio, and you're managing that, and that requires, let's say, 2 days a week. We're just making numbers up. So 10 properties, 2 days a week. And then you decide to take on another 10 properties. If they were your own properties, then in a sense, you'd be taking out management fee, a letting agent fee from your own income to pay yourself. So it's still all your own money. So you'd then be managing 20 properties essentially for free. But if you have your 10 properties and you're quite happy with the portfolio at 10, and then what you do is you take on 10 properties from strangers, from other investors, and you charge them a fee. The money that comes into that is actually new money. It's actually a new business. And that can then start to free up your time by funding a member of staff that can come in and help, because suddenly you've got 4 days a week work. If you're working 4 days a week on a combination of your portfolio and somebody else's portfolio, there's very little time for you to be creative and grow your own business. And so bringing in the resources makes sense. Do you see how that follows? I had the same thing in my business. So I was buying property for myself and for my family. And all of a sudden, people started saying, oh, it's all right for you. How can you do that for me? So I followed exactly the same process. When I was going up north to look at a property for me, I was also going up north to look at a property for other clients. When I was speaking to the letting agent about my portfolio, I'm also working with the same letting agent for other clients. And I'm now in a position where my letting agent has got close to 100 properties through me. That now makes me a significant client to her. I know that when I ring up, people pay attention to me in the office. Now, that's not to say that my agent wouldn't pay attention. They absolutely would. But I think there's a big difference to if you've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties with a particular agent, to all of a sudden when you've got close to 100 properties with an agent and you're doing more business to them, you become an important person to them, and therefore the service, the communication, and everything just becomes easier because you speak more often. You know one another's ways of working. And you can imagine working with me might be a bit of a challenge. No, I'm not. I'm lovely, actually. I am a lovely person to work with. So what I would say to you here is that there are, this word, economies of scale. So there are economies of scale in Lisa's business. And what I started to see was economies of scale in my business. But then beyond the economies of scale was the enhanced relationship that I had with everybody that I work with the solicitors, with the brokers, with the tradespeople, with the insurance people, with the accountancy people, as well as the letting agent. And now everybody that I need to use on a personal basis, and use on a personal basis because I know, like, trust, get good service from, so I have recommended them to my clients. They get the business from my clients, and therefore, again, as a collective group, we've got economies of scale, but we've also got the power of the group. We are important so that when one of my clients has a challenge, they're not just there with 1 to 4 properties, which is typically what a lot of my clients are at, or they're moving from 4 to 8. So they're in 2 phases. But if you were in the 1 to 4 group and one of your properties needed an insurance claim, or you need to do a remortgage, and then you're just coming back as a lone stranger, somebody who probably with a broker, you probably won't have spoken to your broker for 3 to 5 years, and then you're coming back, you want a good service, you're a complete stranger to them. But actually, because we come as a group, you're not a stranger. You're one of a larger group that is noticed and is significant. And I think there is a value in that. I think there's a value to the people that I use in my team because they get a lot of business. And I think there is a very definitely a value for us as a collective of individual investors coming with a voice that carries many behind it. So it's almost as if we not come as a gang, and we were not obviously not coming as a gang, but you know, I don't know what I'm trying to get to, but you know what I mean. I think there is more weight to us when we show up as a client. We're more known, more aware of. Okay. Then if we move over to Cyril's example. So what we've got with Cyril's example was he's quite happily doing his HMO strategy and he's doing his management. But he's got to the stage where he's got an office, and the office is an expense. And if you want to increase your profit, yes, you can do more. But one of the ways you can increase your profit very easily is to look at your expenses and go, right, with all of these expenses, how can I not so much reduce them, but make my expenses better by either making them work harder, or potentially by reducing, by cutting something out, or by negotiating. Fine. So he went, here's this opportunity. I drive past it every day. It's not far from where I am. The location is good. How much is it on for? Actually, although that's more than I want to pay, the finances aren't bad. The finances could work. And why can they work? Because he knew his business model, and his business model could sit on the first floor and then fund the whole of the ground floor for free. So it was a pub, not spoiling it, I don't think, but it's a pub, split it in two, put a 5-bed HMO on the top, and put the pub turned into offices downstairs. The cost of running the offices would be paid for by the profit made from the tenants who are living in the 5-bed HMO upstairs. Excellent news. So now what we're seeing is that he's going to reduce his expenses, because instead of paying out for commercial offices, he's not only, in a sense, paying himself the rent, but it's free because he doesn't need to pay rent at all, because it is funded by the HMO. So you're looking at how the business is now able to grow, because instead of paying out rent on a monthly basis, it has more cash flow, which means more opportunity. You could spend that on more staff, or you could spend that on another investment opportunity. And actually, if you listen to Cyril, and it's only as I step back and I go, a few more days back, actually, hang on a second, there was a question I forgot to ask. He said, oh yeah, and I didn't get to ask about that, because he slips in little sentences there that I need to go back and unpack that, because dropped in there is the fact that he seems to manage estates. We've never spoken about that before. Obviously, I'm going to need to do another podcast. And also there was something in there about car parking. So what happened to the car park? I didn't pick up on the car park. So see if you can spot that. And maybe you can message me and say, right, I need you back. I need you to get Cyril back. And here are all the questions that I want for Cyril. And similarly, if you spot things that I didn't pick up on with Lisa, then send me a message and I can go back and get them back on, and let's grill them a bit further. But I think what you can start to see is that there is business development opportunities as you become more experienced, but also as you're going to grow, as you're going to step up and grow your business into a new area where you've not been up until now. That's where you're going to need the mentor. Who is the person who is in front of you that can pull you forward? So if I then go back into my story, so first off, we had the sourcing. And so I was sourcing properties, and I believe sourcing is a foundation strategy. I think it's absolutely a foundation strategy. And then everything else is a technique that you take off of sourcing, because no matter what you do, whether you're looking at commercial properties or HMOs or buy-to-lets or anything, source, to locate, to find, you've got to have that skill set. If you don't have that skill set, you're not going to find anything else. Lisa is sourcing her HMOs, and Cyril sourced this pub and first commercial venture that he did. So if you don't have that, you don't have anything. So I had that as a skill. I applied it to buy-to-lets. I then found that people wanted me to do this for them. So I find properties for people. We're in the middle of buying 4, and then I've got another 4 or 5 lined up. When we get through these completions, then I'll go again with the next batch of clients for the next batch of properties. But alongside that, and you'll notice the books behind me if you're on YouTube, and if not, you'll have seen my books around in links and social media. I've got an education background. And so how do you start to knit things together? How do you knit in your previous experience and then look at how you can make more of it? So I was a university lecturer, so education, teaching, sharing knowledge, in essence, why I do this podcast. How do you maximize on that? And what I realized was that some of the people coming to me going, oh, what are you doing? How can you do that for me? Were not in a position where they were ready to actually source in property, where they were ready to invest into a property. But what they did want to do was learn how. And one of the simplest things that they can do is to learn the strategy of how to invest in property by sourcing. And that's what I do. And that's what I have created. So for years, I have been working with individuals, teaching them how to source, which is the foundation, fundamental level of everything. And when I say foundation and fundamental, that doesn't mean to say that it's belittled in any way. It's actually very complex. And without this, and without getting this foundation right, then everything else is vulnerable. Everything else could be a potential weakness. And then what you look at is, okay, so now I know I've got that solid foundation. I know how to find good deals. What works best for me? And then we apply it. Then we go, okay, so you're in a position where you've got good contacts or good marketing skills, or you're very organized, or whatever the skill set is. How can we then fill in the gap so that you can run a sourcing business, or so that you can look at how you can maximize your financials? Is there an opportunity to work with your family or whatever else, whatever the appropriate application of this actual strategy is, and what technique is it best to do? And so it's created a second business for me. Now, if I go back to Cyril, once he discovered the pub and once he realized he had his first commercial property, you listen how quickly it was that he went to more deals. As soon as he saw that first opportunity, it's almost as if he then got, a sharpening of his lenses. So one eye is busy looking for the HMOs, and now all of a sudden the next lens is looking at commercials, and you start to see properties in a way that you hadn't seen them before, because you go up a level. And if you look at what Lisa's doing, she was managing her own, and now all of a sudden, because she's recognized that other people want her services, her skill, her knowledge, she's been able to create a business out of that. And I know there are bigger and better things still to come for Lisa. I'm absolutely sure of it. I don't even need to worry about Cyril, because he's off and up to all sorts of mischief that we haven't even unpacked yet. And of course, the other side of all that Cyril does with the I can't remember what they all stand for, PIB, can't remember what that, property investor something, I would imagine board, maybe property investor. I'm going to go with board. P's, I know, which is about the property educators accreditation scheme. He's also got the investor awards that he runs every Christmas. So he's got a lot of other things going on, but some of those things I feel come from the essence of Cyril, and he would have been doing them no matter what field he ended up in. So you can start to see from these two people doing very different things at very different levels, how they have both grown their businesses substantially. I mean, Lisa now, and again, we didn't really touch on it, but the development projects that she's into, where once again, we sort of did the same thing. Once you've done, first of all, a simple refurbishment, and then you've done a full refurbishment, and then before you know it, you've bought a property that you have to take all the way back to brick, and you've learned how to work with trades, and you've learned the order to do things, and you've learned where to source the material. I would say it's very easy, but the next logical step is a development. And we did a big development here at home, and we've done some smaller developments. Lisa is doing developments as well. So you can start to see how you can branch out. And people sometimes go, well, buy to lets or whatever, just starting off with the little ones. It's a choice. It's a choice about how complicated you want your life to be, how sure you are that property is right or not right for you, how much time you want to put involved. If you are working full time, but you have spare money that isn't being leveraged, being maximized in a way that it is going to create long-term cash flow, independent of your work life or independent of your business, then actually working with me to help you create that is a great way to start. When you get to the stage where you have enough additional income coming in that you go, do you know what, I think I can change the way I'm working. And if you go back and you listen to Ross Tullock, I'll put the links in here. When Ross and I worked, he first worked in London for Google, I believe, and he came to me and he said, I want to give up work because I'm missing my children. I don't have any control over my time. By the time we'd finished working together, he'd got his own property portfolio, and he's now given up full-time work and created his own business. And he's got, I think, 3 businesses in his portfolio with him and his brother. It's interesting to see how it is a stepped approach. If you suddenly start off by saying, Vicky, I earn 100,000 and I only have this much savings, but I want to give up work tomorrow, it's a much harder step than if you're prepared to say, right, I'd like to work with you on a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan. These are the resources that I can come up with. Let's work out what the goal is, the reasonable and sensible goal that I can achieve quickly, and then how I can move on to the second goal and how I can move on to the third goal. And breaking it down like that makes so much more sense. When you read these adverts that say, I made £50,000 and a £1 million portfolio in a year, you're not getting to the truth of, well, how much money did you start with? Did you work full time? Is that me? And is that my position? And you've got to sort of read through the headlines. And I think I've probably said that somewhere on a podcast or a reel. So I hope this makes sense. And I hope I've been able to put some whoosh into why you should listen to the next 2 podcasts over the next 2 weeks. It's not just about the obvious skills that you can, I was going to say see, but actually you're listening. It's not just about the obvious skills that you can hear as we're having our conversation around education, around maths, around communication, the team, and of course, who's going to pull you forward, that all-important mentor. But it's also about, can you see, if you stand back, the bigger picture of these 2 podcasts, which coincidentally, by the time we've arranged our diaries, happen to be recorded. I managed to put them on the same day, record them on the same day for release 1 week after the other. And then I've just sat here and thought, do you know what? They're 2 random people who don't actually know one another. And yet there again is this hidden message in their story. And I think I was talking about that last week, wasn't I? When I was talking about holidays, these messages. Oh my goodness, there's another one for you. So that's what's been going on. I've listened to these 2 conversations. They've been playing over in my mind. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing this podcast because I found another metaphor in both Lisa and Cyril's stories that I wanted to share with you. That story of development, that story of how one thing leads to another. Your overnight success may take you 5 years. It may take you 20 years. But your overnight success is brewing all the time as long as you're working on it. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. I can't wait for you to listen to these 2 podcasts. I hope that you contact me and tell me what you think. And if you spot anything that I haven't followed up with a question, because you're trying to stay engaged and you're listening to people, and I make as many notes as I can. And sometimes there just isn't enough time to ask everything. But if I've missed anything that you want to hear about, get in touch and let me know. Make sure that you subscribe and follow this podcast, this episode, because otherwise you're going to miss out on the others. And of course, if you want to prepare to listen to Lisa and Cyril, again, we'll put it in the show notes, but go back and listen to some of the other stories about how they started and what they're doing. And then these will be nice cherries on the top of the icing on top of the cake. I'm going to leave you with that. I look forward to speaking to you again. I'll speak to you again in a few weeks where we're going to change shift and actually start digging into some of the property strategies and some of the business strategies that are needed for success. Until then, a very good day to you and happy listening.